The time has come for you to pass biology. So don't miss this opportunity that you have. Okay. So I'm going to make sure that you understand. Okay. So in this representation, I'm going to answer Biology Paper 2 2017, GCE and Internal, specifically question 5. So on question 5, Biology Paper 2, Section A. So the questions they get from genetics, yeah. So now in this part here, I'm going to start with the first one, which came in 2017 internal. So the question is saying Mrs. Mumba delivered a baby girl in a certain hospital. Mrs. Mumba has blood group O, and the father to the girl has blood group AB. Mrs. Mumba sues the hospital for giving her a wrong baby whose blood group was O. So if I were to correct the data here, Mrs. Mumba is having what? Blood group O. Then the father to the girl is having what? Blood group AB. Then the child or the girl is having what? Blood group O. So now before I answer this question here, let me try to explain something here. So I'm going to say, or the things that you need to know on this part here. Blood groups are represented by what? Alleles. Blood groups are represented by what? Alleles. Specifically, the special allele for blood groups, it is what? Capital letter I. So it looks like this. Okay, so by definition, I can say an allele, it is just an alternate form of what? Genes. An alternate form of what? Genes. Alternate form of what? Genes. That is what? An allele. And usually alleles are represented by pairs of what? Letters. Alleles are represented by pairs of letters. For example, if you say capital letter A and capital letter B, those are what? Alleles. Now remember, I'm saying here alleles for blood group, it is what? Capital letter what? I. So let's for example, if you say the blood group of the father, it is what? AB. So if we are to write the alleles, we can say capital letter I to the power capital letter A, then capital letter I to the power what? Capital letter B. That is what? Blood group AB. Okay. Apart from that one, you need also to know some terms which are used what? Under genetics, like genotype and the phenotype. So as for phenotype, phenotype is just what? An outward appearance of a living organism. An outward appearance of a living organism. Let's for example, the way I'm recording the video, you can sense by just hearing my voice that I'm a male. I'm a what? A male. Or if you just see me, you are going to see the characteristics of a what? A male. That is what? The phenotype. And usually phenotype, you're going to find that as for phenotype, it is not represented by what? Alleles. Okay. Then the next one is what? Genotype. Genotype, it is just what? An internal or genetic composition of a living organism. Okay. The way you and I are composed genetically. And usually, genotype is represented by what? Alleles. For example, we are having blood group AB for the father. But as for the genotype, we can say it is blood group what? AB, by using what? The special allele for blood groups. That is what? Capital letter I to the power A, capital letter I to the power what? B. So alleles usually are represented by what? By pairs, or we can say alleles goes in pair. Okay, apart from that one, we can also talk of the dominant gene. If you talk of the dominant gene are usually represented by what? Capital letters. Dominant gene are usually represented by what? Capital letters. Okay. Then as for the recessive alleles, they are represented by what? Small letters. So now, on the blood groups, we have only 3 alleles or 3 blood group alleles. That is what? A, B, and O. From A, B, and O, we can get any blood group that we want. Like for example, the blood group of the father, which is what? AB, we can obtain this blood group from A and B. Now, usually on this part here, blood group A exists as what? Homozygous, or I can say blood group A exists both homozygous dominant and heterozygous what? Recessive. When I say blood group A exists as homozygous dominant, which means, let's for example, if I say blood group A, I'm going to say capital letter I to the power capital letter A, capital letter I to the power T, capital letter A. If I say blood group A heterozygous, which means I'm going to include now the blood group what? O, or I'm going to include what? O. The reason why I'm including O here is that O is recessive. O is recessive. As the result, O only exists as what? Homozygous recessive. When you say homo means what? Same. As for recessive, which means blood group O has no power. Blood group O has no power, but hear me clearly here, I'm saying blood group O has no power. As the result, it is a recessive and it occurs homozygous what? Recessive. So that's why I was saying blood group A can exist both homozygous dominant and heterozygous what? Dominant. Similarly, to blood group what? B. Blood group B can exist also both homozygous dominant, where you are going to have capital letter I to the power capital letter B, capital letter I to the power capital letter B, and heterozygous, which is what? Capital letter I to the power capital letter B, then capital letter I to the power T, O. That is what? Blood group B heterozygous. Okay, so I think on this part here you have gotten my point. So now for Mrs. Mumba and the father to produce a child or a girl child with blood group O, which means Mr. Mumba, or let me say the father, should exist as what? Heterozygous blood group A, or heterozygous blood group what? B. Or the father should be what? Homozygous blood group O as recessive. Okay, I think on this part you have gotten my point. Now let's try to answer the question here. So as you can see here, they are saying Mrs. Mumba delivered a baby girl in a certain hospital. Mrs. Mumba has blood group O. So here I was saying blood group O exists as the homozygous recessive, which means Mrs. Mumba was the blood group O as the capital letter I to the power O, capital letter I to the power T, O. Then as for the father is what? AB, like that one. Okay, so this one is what? Blood group A and blood group A, they exist as codominants to each other. So always a dominant allele should come first. Okay, the dominant allele should come what? First. So now the question is saying explain using a genetic diagram why Mrs. Mumba would win or lose the case. So in this case here, I'm going to start with what? The phenotype, which is the what? The outward appearance of a living organism. So here I'm going to say Mrs. what? Let me say Mr. Mumba or the father. I can say Mr. Mumba or the father. Closed with what? Mrs. Mumba or the mother. Then followed by the genetic composition, which is what? The genotype. So on the genotype here, we represent the genotype by using what? Alleles. Since genotype are represented by alleles, we are going to use what? Alleles. And blood groups are represented by a special allele, which is what? Capital letter A and D. You put to the power the type of a blood group that you are talking about. So in this case here, they are saying the father or Mr. Mumba is having blood group what? AB. So I'm going to say capital letter I to the power A, capital letter I to the power B. That is what? The blood group of Mr. Mumba, or the father. Then as for Mrs. Mumba is having blood group O, and then I was saying blood group O exists as homozygous recessive. Blood group O does not exist heterozygous. Okay, so which means here I'm going to say capital letter I to the power O, capital letter I to the power O. So from there now I'm going to split the what? The gametes. So if I split the gametes here, capital letter I to the power A is going to be single, and also capital letter I to the power B is going to be what? Separated. That is what is splitting the gametes. Then from there now, capital letter A from Mr. Mumba is going to cut the two gametes from Mrs. what? Mumba. Okay, so here I'm going to say capital letter A is going to go with the blood group what? O. As the result here I'm going to have what? Capital letter I to the power A, capital letter I to the power O, which is what? Blood group A heterozygous. Then capital letter A to the, let me say capital letter I to the power capital letter M close with O. I'm going to have the same blood group, which is what? Blood group A heterozygous. Let's move on to B. Capital letter I to the power B is going to cut out with every let me say is going to cut out with two gametes only, Mrs. Mumba. As the result here, the first thing that we are going to have capital letter I to the power capital letter B, capital letter I to the power T, O. Then the next one we are going to have capital letter B, let me say capital letter I to the power B, then capital letter I to the power T, O. Now as you can see here, we are not having what? A child with blood group what? O. Remember, I was saying blood group O exists as what? Homozygous recessive, which means here we are not going to have what? A blood group O child, which means Mrs. Mumba is going to win the what? The case. So Mrs. Mumba is going to what? To win the case. So in this case here, I'm going to say F1. So F1 represent what? Filler 1 genotype. We are going to have what? Blood group what? A, blood group A, and on the other side we are going to have blood group B, blood group what? B. Okay, that is what? The phenotype in terms of what? The alleles. Then F1 phenotype, that is what? An outward appearance. So in this part here we are going to use now the letters. So in this case here I'm going to say blood group in words, blood group A, blood group A, blood group B, blood group what? B. Then at the end I'm going to say Mrs. Mumba will win the what? The case. Okay. Then the next one, which is B. B is saying what could have been the correct genotype of the actual father. They are talking about the what? The daughter, which is the what? A girl. So now in this case here, when they say genotype, here I was saying genotypes or genotype are represented by what? Alleles. So in this case here, if you say blood group A, they are not going to mark you because you have just used what? The phenotype, which is the what? The outward appearance. So in this case here, you are supposed to use now what? The alleles for blood group. So now, for this child which is having blood group O to be produced, which means the father is going to have heterozygous blood group what? A, or we can say heterozygous blood group what? B, or the father is going to be what? Homozygous blood group O recessive. Let me repeat on this part here. If you try to draw a genetic diagram using the alleles that I've given you, you're going to find that at least we are going to have a child D with blood group what? O. So here I'm saying the actual father was having blood group A heterozygous, which means we are going to have capital letter I to the power capital letter A, capital letter I to the power O. Or we can say capital letter I to the power capital letter B, capital letter I to the power O. Or we can say the father was blood group O homozygous recessive, where you are going to have OO on the capital letter I. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So the next one is saying a pure bleeding black bull was crossed with a pure breeding red cow. So in talk of bull, this one is just a male cattle. Then when you talk of the cow, that's what team, the female cattle. So all the resulting offspring were black. So all the resulting offspring were black. This information is very, very important for us to answer this question. We need to understand it. It is saying all the resulting offspring were what? Black. So which means here, which cattle here was black? It is what? It was the black bull. So now when you talk of pure breeding are represented by what? Same letters. Pure breeding are represented by what? Same letters. Let's say, for example, if you talk of dominant allele, if they have used capital letters, which means we are going to use now capital letters, same letters. If they have used small letters, we need to use what? Small letters, which are the what? The same. So now in this part here, which means we can conclude that the red cow was recessive, because we can't have all the resulting offspring if the red cow was heterozygous. For us to have all the resulting offspring to be black, which means the red cow was what? Recessive, which means the genes were not what? Powerful. As the result, the black bull was having powerful alleles or genes. So in this case here we can say the genes of a black bull or the genes of black bull was shown on the phenotype. Okay, so in this case here they are saying using what? Which is question A, using letter B, which is capital letter B, or small letter b for alleles. So now, in this case here, dominant alleles are represented by capital letters. When you say a dominant allele, it is just what? A allele which expresses itself on a phenotype. So in this case here, when you talk of a dominant allele between the black bull and a red cow, which one is dominant here? It is what? Black bull, because all the resulting offspring were what? Black. So which means as for black bull, we are going to use what? Capital letter B. Now here I was saying alleles, they occur in pair, which means we are going to have capital letter B and another capital letter B. Remember, here we are not talking about what? Blood. Blood has its own what? Allele, which is what? Capital letter I. Now this one is not blood. Okay, so we are just going to use what? Capital letter B and another capital letter B. So which means the red cow here was what? Recessive. So as for recessive, here they are saying the red cow is what? It is a pure breeding, which means even here we are going to use what? Small letter b and small letter b. Okay. So the first question, which is Roman numeral number 1, is saying which allele? Remember, alleles are represented by what? Letters. So they're saying which allele was dominant for skin color. So in this case here, if you say black bull, they are going to mark you wrong, because alleles are represented by what? Letters. So which means here I'm going to say B. Capital letter B, don't small letter b. I'm going to say capital letter B, capital letter B. Two B's. Okay. Then as for Roman numeral number 2 is saying, what was the genotype? What was the what? The genotype for the parent black bull. What was the what? The genotype for the parent black bull. So in this case here, the parent black bull had what? Homozygous dominant, which is what? Capital letter B and capital letter what? B. I guess you have gotten my point here. So I'm saying the parent black bull was having what? Capital letter B, capital letter what? B, because it was what? Dominant. And all the resulting offspring were what? Black. Then as for question B. Question B is saying, using a genetic diagram, using what? A genetic diagram. Show the resulting offspring. If the offspring, so you need to understand on this part here, if the offspring black bull was crossed with the what? The parent red cow. I guess you have gotten my point here. So here I'm saying, using a genetic diagram, show the resulting offspring. If the offspring black bull, so the offspring black bull here, remember, all the resulting offspring were what? Black. So as for the first genetic diagram, let me display it on the screen. So we are going to have the phenotype. So the phenotype is going to be what? The black bull, which is the what? Offspring black bull, closed with the what? The red cow. Okay, closed with what? The red cow. As the result here, we are going to find that for the genotype, for the what? The genotype of the offspring black bull, we are going to have capital letter B and small letter what? B. Then as for the red cow, since we know that the red cow was having homozygous recessive, which is what? Small letter b and small letter what? B. So which means here, when we cross the genetic diagram, or when we cross here, we are going to find that the offspring that we are going to have here, the first one is going to have capital letter B and small letter what? B. Another one is going to have capital letter B and small letter what? B. Then another one is going to have what? Small letter B, small letter B. Then the last one, small letter B and small letter what? B. Okay, so I guess you have gotten my point here. So the last one, which is C, is saying, suggest what could happen to the pure breeding black bull or red cow to cause them to produce a black and white offspring. So for them to produce black and white offspring, they need to exist heterozygous dominant or homozygous dominant. Let me say, they need to exist codominance to each other. When you say they need to exist codominance to each other, which means the allele for the red cow should be equal to the what? Or should be dominant to the black bull. And also the black bull should be dominant to the red cow. So in short, I can say they need to exist as homozygous dominant and they need to exist codominance. So as for codominance, I can say codominance, these are two different alleles with equal expression in the phenotype. With equal expression in the phenotype. They are going to be different, but they are going to have equal expression in the phenotype. So an example that I can give here, blood group AB. Blood group AB. We can't say blood group AB, it is blood group A. We can't, because blood group A is dominant to blood group B, and blood group B is dominant to blood group what? A. So that was the last one. Thanks for watching. See you next time.